The Declaration. The Sovereign Assembly had stood for 12,000 years at the center of the galaxy. Its towers reached into the void of space, built from materials that could survive the death of stars. Inside the Grand Chamber, 15 species gathered, each one representing civilizations that had conquered disease, poverty, and war within their own worlds. They considered themselves the pinnacle of evolution, the guardians of galactic peace. Today they had gathered to discuss a problem. Vexthera, supreme arbiter of the assembly, stood at the center of the circular chamber. Her species, the Krell, were tall and graceful, with skin that shimmered like liquid silver. They had been the first to achieve faster-than-light travel, the first to map the galaxy, the first to establish the codes that governed all civilized species. When Vexthera spoke, entire worlds listened. She activated the holographic display, and a small blue planet appeared above the chamber floor. Members of the Sovereign Assembly, we must address the human question. A murmur rippled through the chamber. The humans? In just 200 years since achieving space travel, they had become impossible to ignore. Counselor Dren of the Axion Collective leaned forward. His people were beings of pure energy contained within crystalline shells. What have they done now? Vexthera's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed concern. They have established colonies on 53 worlds. They have made contact with 47 species. And they have refused to acknowledge our authority on 17 separate occasions. Refused? This came from Ambassador Quellis, whose species resembled enormous beetles with iridescent wings. How can they refuse? We are the Sovereign Assembly. We have maintained order for millennia. They claim their expansion is peaceful, Vexthera continued. They say they seek only to explore and establish new homes. But our analysts have reviewed their history. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show images from Earth's past. Cities burning. Armies clashing. Weapons of terrible destruction. This species has been at war with itself for its entire recorded history. They have developed 17 different ways to exterminate their own kind. They poison their air, their water, their land, and yet they continue to survive and multiply. Our xenobiologists have classified their homeworld as a Class 12 death world. Silence fell across the chamber. A Class 12 designation was rare. Most civilized species evolved on worlds with stable climates, abundant resources, and few natural predators. Death worlds were the opposite. Planets that actively tried to kill everything living on them. Their planet experiences temperature variations of over 100 degrees, Vexthera explained. It suffers from massive storms, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and meteorite impacts. The atmosphere contains highly corrosive oxygen at dangerous levels. Diseases regularly sweep through their populations. And yet, they thrive. Counselor Dren's crystalline form pulsed with light. This is concerning, yes, but why bring this to full assembly? Many species come from difficult worlds. Vexthera pulled up another image. It showed a human settlement on a frozen moon, where temperatures dropped to -200 degrees at night. Humans walked through the ice storms in heated suits, building structures, growing food in underground farms, raising children. Because they do not merely survive their homeworld. They actively seek out hostile environments. 70% of their colonies are on worlds we classified as uninhabitable. They prefer to terraform nightmares rather than settle on the garden worlds we offered them. She brought up more images. Humans living in underwater cities on water worlds. Humans mining in the cores of asteroids with deadly radiation. Humans establishing outposts on the edge of black holes to study gravitational anomalies. They are too curious, Vexthera said quietly. Too aggressive. Too resilient. And worst of all, they are helping the lesser species. This caused an uproar. The lesser species were the younger civilizations, those who had not yet proven themselves worthy of full membership in the galactic community. By ancient law, they were to be guided by the assembly, protected but controlled, given technology slowly over centuries. The humans had ignored this law completely. They have given faster-than-light drives to the Mikori, Vexthera listed. They have shared medical technology with the Terrene. They have taught the Velix how to build sustainable energy systems. They call it uplifting. They believe every species deserves the right to advance at its own pace. Chaos. Ambassador Quellis buzzed angrily. This will lead to chaos. The lesser species exist in their place for a reason. They are not ready for such power. Vexthera nodded slowly. I agree. Which is why I propose we invoke Directive Omega-9. We classify humanity as a Category 9 extinction threat. We establish an immediate quarantine around all human-controlled systems. And we prepare to neutralize them if they resist. The chamber erupted in debate. Some counselors agreed immediately. Others hesitated. A few argued for diplomacy, for giving the humans more time to understand galactic law. But in the end, fear won. Fear of change. Fear of chaos. Fear of a species that refused to follow the rules that had governed the galaxy for 12,000 years. The vote was called. 15 hands rose. 15 species agreed. Humanity was now officially an extinction-level threat to galactic civilization. The message went out immediately, broadcast across every communications network in known space. All trade with human worlds was forbidden. All travel to human space was prohibited. And all member species of the Sovereign Assembly were ordered to prepare for military action if humans did not comply with immediate isolation. On Titan Station, orbiting Saturn in humanity's home system, Commander Elena Vasquez was reviewing supply reports when the message arrived. She was a compact woman with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun, her face weathered by years spent in space. She had served in the United Earth Navy for 23 years, rising from a fighter pilot to commander of humanity's largest military installation. Her second officer, Lieutenant James Okafor, brought her the decoded transmission. His hands were shaking. Elena read it once. Then again. Then a third time, certain she had misunderstood. But the words remained the same. They declared war on us, she said, her voice flat with disbelief. Not war exactly, James replied. A quarantine. They're calling us a threat to galactic stability. They want us to cease all expansion, surrender any non-human technology we've acquired, and submit to assembly oversight of our government. Elena looked up at him. That's war, James. They're just being polite about it. She stood and walked to the observation window. Beyond the reinforced glass, Saturn hung in space like a jewel, its rings catching the distant sunlight. Humanity had come so far. From single-celled organisms in ancient oceans to walking upright on an African plain. From stone tools to spacecraft. From tribal villages to colonies spanning 53 worlds. And now, the oldest civilizations in the galaxy had decided humanity needed to be contained. Get me the Joint Chiefs, she said. All of them. I don't care what time zone they're in or what meeting they're attending. Tell them we have a situation that requires immediate attention. What are you going to tell them? James asked. Elena turned from the window. Her expression was hard, carved from determination and something older. Something that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. Something that had looked at every obstacle in humanity's path and found a way forward. I'm going to tell them that we've been challenged, she said. And humanity has never backed down from a challenge. Within hours, the Joint Chiefs assembled via holographic conference. Admirals and generals from Earth, Mars, Europa, and a dozen colony worlds appeared around Elena's conference table. They had read the transmission. They knew what was coming. Options, said Admiral Chin, commander of the Mars Defense Fleet. He was an old man with white hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. Compliance is not an option, Elena stated firmly. They want us to stop growing, stop exploring, stop being who we are. That's death by another name. Slow extinction. Then we fight, said General Amati, head of the Colonial Marine Corps. She was younger than the others, barely 40, but she had earned her position defending the outer colonies from pirates and hostile alien fauna. But we need to be realistic. The Assembly has been spacefaring for 12,000 years. They have weapons we can't imagine. Their smallest member species has a fleet 10 times larger than ours. We can't win a conventional war, agreed Admiral Kowalski from the Europa station. Not in any time frame that matters. Elena leaned forward. Then we don't fight a conventional war. We fight the way humans have always fought when we're outnumbered and outgunned. We adapt. We improvise. We endure. You're talking about guerrilla warfare, Admiral Chin said slowly. Hit and run. Sabotage. Making them pay for every system they try to take. I'm talking about survival, Elena corrected. Our ancestors survived ice ages with nothing but fire and spears. They survived plagues that killed half the population. They survived wars that burned entire continents. We have something they don't. What's that? General Amati asked. Practice, Elena said grimly. We've been fighting to survive since we first stood upright. It's in our DNA. Every human alive today is descended from someone who refused to die when everything said they should. She pulled up a holographic display of human-controlled space. We have 53 colonies. Not all of them are on the books. Some are experimental stations, research outposts, mining operations and uninhabited systems. The Assembly doesn't know about all of them. You want to hide our assets, Admiral Kowalski said. I want to prepare, Elena replied. We move military equipment to the hidden stations. We fortify our border colonies. We start producing weapons and ships at maximum capacity. And we prepare every human in every system for what's coming. Total war, Admiral Chin said quietly. Yes, Elena agreed. Because they've left us no choice. They see us as animals, as a problem to be solved. They think we'll roll over and accept our cage. She looked at each holographic face in turn. But humanity doesn't do cages. We break them. The meeting lasted 6 hours. Plans were made. Resources were allocated. Every human military installation in known space received new orders. Civilian governments were briefed. Scientists were pulled from peaceful research and directed toward weapons development. And across human space, from Earth to the farthest colonies, people began to prepare for war. On Aurora Prime, a farming colony on the edge of human space, the warning came too late. The people there had built a peaceful life on a world of rolling plains and gentle rain. They grew crops, raised children, and dreamed of the future. They did not see the assembly warships until they were already in orbit. Commander Sethis of the assembly fleet looked down at the planet from his flagship. His species, the Rin, were covered in scales that changed color with their emotions. Right now, his scales were a calm blue. This would be simple. The humans would surrender or they would die. Either way, the problem would be solved. Broadcast the terms, he ordered. His communications officer complied. The message went out to every receiver on Aurora Prime. By order of the Sovereign Assembly, all human presence on this world is illegal. You have 2 hours to board evacuation ships. Any resistance will be met with lethal force. Sethis expected panic. He expected chaos. Perhaps some begging or negotiating. What he got was silence for exactly 3 minutes. Then from the planet's surface, a response came. A single human voice, female, calm and clear. We were here first. This is our home. If you want it, come and take it. Sethis' scales shifted to orange, the color of confusion. They refuse? It appears so, Commander. Do they not understand we can destroy them from orbit? Shall I explain this to them, sir? Sethis considered. The assembly preferred to avoid unnecessary destruction. It was inefficient and wasteful. Better to simply take control of the planet with ground forces, relocate the humans and move on. Send down the occupation troops, he ordered. Secure the main settlement. Minimal casualties. We're not here to commit genocide. The landing craft descended through Aurora Prime's atmosphere. 5,000 assembly soldiers, the best from 3 different species, all heavily armed and armored. They expected frightened farmers. They expected easy compliance. They landed in the middle of an empty town. The buildings stood intact, but no humans waited in the streets. No one came out with hands raised in surrender. The town was silent, abandoned, as if everyone had simply vanished. Spread out, the ground commander ordered. Search every building. Find them. The soldiers moved through the town in careful formation. They checked houses, barns, shops, schools. Everything was in order. Food still sat on tables. Clothes hung in closets. But there were no people. Then the first bomb went off. It was buried under the main street, positioned perfectly to catch the largest concentration of soldiers. The explosion threw bodies into the air and shattered the careful formation. Before the survivors could regroup, gunfire erupted from every window, every rooftop, every hidden position. The farmers of Aurora Prime had not run. They had prepared. The battle lasted until sunset. When it was over, Commander Sethis stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. 3,000 soldiers dead. Another 1,000 wounded. And the humans still controlled the planet. His scales had turned black, the color of fear. Prepare orbital bombardment, he said quietly. If they won't surrender, we'll destroy them. But before he could give the final order, a priority message arrived from the assembly. New intelligence had come in about humanity's homeworld. About their history. About what they truly were. And for the first time in 12,000 years of galactic peace, the Sovereign Assembly realized they might have made a terrible mistake. The awakening. The emergency session of the Unified Earth Command convened in a bunker 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Geneva. Representatives from every human government, every colony, every military branch gathered in person or via hologram. The room hummed with tension and barely contained fury. Commander Elena Vasquez stood at the head of the chamber, her uniform crisp despite having not slept in 36 hours. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the casualty reports from Aurora Prime. 2,300 civilians dead. Another 800 wounded. Families who had done nothing but try to build a life on a distant world. They killed children, someone said from the back of the room. The voice was quiet, but it carried. Elena nodded slowly. Yes, they did. They came to a peaceful farming colony and they killed children because we refused to abandon our homes. She let that sink in for a moment. Around the room she saw faces hardening. These were not warriors, most of them. They were politicians, administrators, scientists, people who had spent their careers building, not destroying. But something ancient was awakening in their eyes. Something that had slept during humanity's brief centuries of relative peace. The Sovereign Assembly has declared us a threat to galactic stability, Elena continued. They have demanded we cease all expansion, surrender our sovereignty, and accept their oversight. Aurora Prime was their opening move. A demonstration of their power and their willingness to use it. Chancellor Roberts of the Earth Federation stood up. He was a large man with gray hair and a face that had once been kind. Now it looked carved from stone. What do they know about us? Really know? Elena gestured to her intelligence officer, who pulled up a new display. Our xenoanthropology team has been analyzing their communications. The Assembly views humanity through a very specific lens. They see us as aggressive, unpredictable, and dangerous. But they don't understand why. Show them, Roberts said. The display changed to show Earth from space, then zoomed in. Images flashed across the screen. The Sahara Desert, where temperatures could reach 70 degrees Celsius. The Arctic, where winter lasted for months in total darkness. Tropical jungles filled with diseases and predators. Mountain ranges where the air was too thin to breathe. Oceans that could swallow ships whole. Earth is classified as a Class 12 death world, Elena explained. Only 0.3% of discovered planets fall into this category. Most civilized species evolved on worlds with stable climates, mild seasons, and few environmental threats. The Assembly species cannot comprehend what it means to come from a planet that actively tries to kill you. She pulled up more images. Humanity's evolutionary history. Creatures fleeing from predators with claws and teeth far deadlier than anything a human possessed. Tribes surviving ice ages by walking thousands of kilometers to find food. Civilizations rebuilding after plagues that killed millions. We are persistence predators, Elena said. On Earth we were never the strongest or the fastest. We couldn't overpower a lion or outrun a deer. So we evolved a different strategy. We followed our prey. We tracked them for hours, for days, until they collapsed from exhaustion. Then we killed them. Not because we were better hunters, but because we simply refused to stop. Director Yuki Tanaka of the Mars Research Initiative stood up. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a mind that had revolutionized terraforming technology. You're saying this is genetic? This refusal to quit? I'm saying it's who we are, Elena replied. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. From people who faced impossible odds and kept going anyway. The Assembly thinks they're dealing with just another species. They have no idea they've challenged something that has been evolving to survive for 4 million years. General Marcus Webb of the Colonial Defense Forces spoke up. He was a veteran of the resource wars, scarred and hard. They have superior technology. They have larger fleets. They have 12,000 years of spacefaring experience. How do we fight that? Elena smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. The same way our ancestors fought everything else. We adapt. She pulled up a holographic map of human space. We have 53 official colonies and 17 unofficial outposts. Total human population across all worlds, 42 billion. Military personnel, 200 million. Current fleet strength, 8,000 vessels of various classifications. Against their millions, someone muttered. For now, Elena said. But we're going to change that. As of this moment, every human government, every corporation, every research institution is being converted to a single purpose. Survival. We are going to mobilize every resource we have. Chancellor Roberts leaned forward. You're talking about total war. Every factory, every worker, every scientist focused on the military effort. I'm talking about what humans do best, Elena corrected. We improvise. We overcome. We endure. She gestured to the map. The Assembly expects us to fight like them. Large fleets meeting in open space, honorable battles with clear victories. We're not going to do that. Guerrilla warfare, General Webb said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Exactly. We hit their supply lines. We ambush their patrol fleets. We make every system they try to take cost them more than it's worth. We don't need to defeat their entire military. We just need to make them bleed until they decide we're not worth the effort. Director Tanaka stood again. Our scientists can help. We've been reverse engineering assembly technology for years from captured devices and debris. We know their weaknesses. And we're going to exploit every single one, Elena agreed. I want weapons development accelerated. I want every shipyard working at maximum capacity. I want our best tactical minds developing strategies they've never seen before. She paused, her expression softening slightly. And I want every civilian prepared. This war is coming to all of us whether we like it or not. The vote was unanimous. Every government, every faction that had ever disagreed on anything found common ground in a single purpose. Humanity would not go quietly into extinction. The transformation began immediately. On Earth, factories that had produced consumer goods for centuries retooled overnight. Automobile plants started producing armored vehicles. Electronics manufacturers shifted to military communication systems. Textile mills began making uniforms and body armor. The change happened so fast that assembly spies initially reported it as a malfunction in their surveillance systems. Dr. Sarah Chin stood in her laboratory on Luna, looking at the prototype weapon on her workbench. 2 weeks ago, she had been researching atmospheric processors for terraforming projects. Now she was designing plasma rifles that could punch through assembly armor. She felt no guilt about the change. She had family on Aurora Prime. A sister and 2 nephews who had died when the assembly attacked. Every weapon she built now carried their names in her heart. Dr. Chin? Her assistant entered the lab carrying a data pad. We finished the stress tests on the new design. It's 30% more efficient than assembly standard plasma weapons. Sarah nodded. Good. Send the schematics to every military production facility. I want 10,000 units manufactured by the end of the month. That's aggressive timeline, Doctor. So is extinction, Sarah replied flatly. The assembly thinks they're fighting primitives with inferior technology. Let's prove them wrong. Across human space, similar scenes played out. Scientists who had dedicated their lives to peaceful research turned their considerable intellect toward destruction. Not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Because the alternative was the end of everything they had built. On the colony world of New Shanghai, 16-year-old Marcus Liu sat in a classroom with 30 other teenagers. Their teacher, Mr. Okonkwo, had taught literature and history for 20 years. Today he was teaching them how to field strip an assault rifle. The assembly soldiers wear powered armor, Mr. Okonkwo explained, his voice calm despite the gravity of the lesson. Standard ammunition won't penetrate. You need to aim for the joints. Here, here, and here. He pointed to weak points on a holographic diagram. One good shot can disable them long enough for you to escape or for trained soldiers to finish them. Marcus raised his hand. Sir, we're not soldiers. We're students. Mr. Okonkwo looked at him with sad eyes. I know, Marcus. But if the assembly comes here, everyone needs to know how to defend themselves. Your parents, your teachers, everyone is learning these skills. We hope we never need them. But we need to be ready. After class, Marcus walked home through streets that had changed in subtle ways. Defensive positions were being constructed at key intersections. Medical stations were being established in reinforced buildings. Food and water supplies were being stockpiled in underground bunkers. His mother was waiting at home, reviewing evacuation procedures on her data pad. She had been a botanist, working on developing crops that could grow in New Shanghai's unique soil. Now she was learning emergency medical treatment and basic combat tactics. How was school? She asked, trying to maintain normalcy. Different, Marcus replied honestly. Mom, are they really going to attack us here? She set down the data pad and pulled him into a hug. I don't know, sweetie. But if they do, we're going to be ready. Humans have survived worse than this. Like what? She smiled slightly. Your great-great-grandmother lived through the water wars on Earth. Her city was under siege for 8 months. No food coming in, no medical supplies, enemy forces all around. But she survived. She and your great-great-grandfather helped organize the civilian resistance. They dug wells when the water treatment plants were destroyed. They grew food in secret underground gardens. They kept going when anyone else would have given up. Did she ever talk about it? Once. She said the hardest part wasn't the fighting or the hunger. It was watching people lose hope. So she made it her mission to never let that happen. She told stories, organized games for the children, reminded everyone why they were fighting. His mother looked at him seriously. That's what we need now. Not just soldiers and weapons, but people who refuse to give up. Can you do that? Marcus nodded. He was scared, but beneath the fear was something else. Something stubborn and defiant. Yeah. I can do that. Similar conversations happened across every human world. Parents prepared their children. Teachers trained their students. Communities that had lived in peace for generations learned the skills their ancestors had hoped they would never need. Back on the assembly flagship, Commander Sethis reviewed the intelligence reports with growing unease. His scales had remained black since the disaster at Aurora Prime, and they showed no signs of changing. They are building weapons at an unprecedented rate, his intelligence officer reported. Our analysts estimate they have increased military production by 300% in just 2 weeks. How is that possible? Sethis demanded. They were a peaceful, exploratory species. Apparently not, Commander. We have intercepted communications suggesting that every major human government has converted to what they call a war economy. Their entire civilization is being restructured for conflict. Sethis felt something he had not experienced in his long military career. Doubt. What else have we learned about them? The intelligence officer hesitated. Sir, our xenobiologists have completed their analysis of human evolution. The results are disturbing. Show me. The holographic display activated, showing the evolutionary tree of humanity. Sethis watched as the officer traced the line from primitive primates to modern humans. But it was not the evolution itself that disturbed him. It was what humanity had survived along the way. They evolved during a period their scientists call the Pleistocene epoch, the officer explained. Their planet experienced repeated ice ages. Massive sheets of ice covered significant portions of the landmass. Temperatures dropped to lethal levels. Most species went extinct. But not humans. No, Commander. Humans adapted. They learned to make fire, to create clothing from animal skins, to build shelters. They walked across frozen continents in search of food. They hunted animals twice their size using only primitive weapons. The display showed more. Plagues that killed millions. Wars that consumed entire civilizations. Natural disasters that should have ended the species. They have been fighting extinction events for their entire existence, the officer continued. Every major threat has only made them stronger. Predators? They became better hunters. Disease? They developed advanced medicine. War? They became the most efficient killers on their planet. Sethis' scales began to shift toward purple, the color of fear among his people. What are you saying? I'm saying we may have made a catastrophic error in judgment, Commander. The Assembly classified humans as aggressive and unpredictable. But that's not what they are. They are survivors. And when you threaten a survivor species, you don't get surrender. You get adaptation. A priority communication interrupted them. It came from Assembly intelligence, marked urgent. Sethis opened it and felt his blood run cold. Human ships had been spotted near 3 different Assembly supply depots in the past 24 hours. Each depot had been destroyed. Not by overwhelming force but by surgical strikes. Fast ships appearing from nowhere, launching devastating attacks, and disappearing before reinforcements could arrive. They're already implementing guerrilla tactics, the intelligence officer said quietly. They're not trying to defeat us in open battle. They're trying to bleed us slowly. Another report came in. Then another. Human strike teams had sabotaged a fuel processing station. Human infiltrators had stolen weapons from an assembly armory. Human ships had ambushed a patrol fleet and escaped before the main fleet could respond. How many ships have we lost? Sethis asked. 47 in the past week, Commander. And that's just what we've confirmed. Sethis looked at the star map showing human space. What he had thought would be a simple containment operation was turning into something else. Something much worse. On Titan Station, Commander Elena Vasquez received the latest reports with grim satisfaction. The first phase of the human counteroffensive was working. The assembly was confused, off balance, reacting instead of acting. We hit 3 more supply depots today, Admiral Chin reported via hologram. Captured enough fuel and ammunition to supply our fleet for 6 months. Casualties? Elena asked. Minimal. Our pilots are learning to fight smart instead of hard. Hit and run. Never stay long enough for them to bring their superior numbers to bear. Elena nodded. Good. What about the new weapons from Dr. Chen's team? Field tests exceed expectations. The plasma rifles are outperforming assembly standard issue. We're distributing them to all frontline units. Around the command center, similar reports came in. Human forces were adapting faster than anyone had predicted. They were learning from every engagement, improving their tactics, turning the assembly's own technology against them. But Elena knew this was just the beginning. The assembly had not yet committed their full strength. When they did, humanity would face a real test. "Admiral, I want you to prepare for the next phase," Elena said. "The Assembly will respond to our attacks with overwhelming force. When they do, we need to be ready to make them pay for every system they take." "Scorched earth?" Admiral Chen asked. "If necessary. We deny them resources. We make occupation expensive. We force them to garrison every world with enough troops to hold it against constant resistance." Elena's expression hardened. "They wanted to contain us. Instead, we're going to give them a war that never ends. A war they can't win because we refuse to lose." Across human space, the message went out. Every colony, every outpost, every ship received the same orders: resist, adapt, survive. The Assembly had declared humanity a threat. Now humanity was going to prove them right. On Earth, in a small apartment in Tokyo, an elderly woman named Hiromi Sato watched the news broadcast with tears in her eyes. She had lived through the resource wars as a child, had seen her city bombed and rebuilt. She had thought her grandchildren would live in peace. Now her grandson was training to pilot a fighter craft. Her granddaughter was learning field medicine. The peace she had fought so hard to build was gone, swept away by aliens who feared what humanity might become. But Hiromi did not despair. She had survived war before. She had lost family, lost friends, lost everything she owned. And she had rebuilt. Because that was what humans did. They endured. They persisted. They kept going when any sensible species would have given up. She looked at a photograph on her wall. It showed her as a young woman, standing in the ruins of her childhood home, planting a tree. The tree was still there, grown tall and strong, a symbol that life continued even after destruction. Hiromi picked up her communication device and recorded a message to her grandchildren. "The Assembly thinks they can break us by taking away our homes and our peace. They don't understand that home is not a place. It's the people we love and the future we build together. As long as one human draws breath, as long as one of us refuses to surrender, humanity will endure. Be strong. Be smart. And remember that you come from a long line of survivors. We have faced extinction before and we are still here. We will survive this too." She sent the message and looked out her window at the night sky. Somewhere up there, the Assembly was preparing their next move. But humanity was preparing too. And when the two forces met, the galaxy would learn what it truly meant to challenge a species that had spent 4 million years perfecting the art of survival. The war was just beginning. And humanity was done playing by anyone else's rules. In the depths of space, human ships moved like shadows, striking and vanishing. On every colony world, citizens prepared for battles they hoped would never come. In laboratories and factories, the machinery of war hummed with purpose. And in the hearts of 42 billion humans, a single thought burned bright and defiant. They had been challenged and they would answer. Not with surrender. Not with fear. But with the same stubborn determination that had carried humanity from the caves of Africa to the stars above. The Sovereign Assembly had declared war on the deadliest lifeform in the galaxy. Now they would learn what that truly meant.